Welcome back. Today I am titling this video, Uncertain Times, Are You Prepared? And the reason is a lot has happened over the past 2 years. We've had very uncertain times. And it used to be that the concept of a black swan event was something unexpected that would occur and it would throw everything into chaos, but it was rare. And yet now over the past 2 years, I feel like black swan events are common. The pandemic was obviously a big one, right? But the lockdown from the pandemic, that has never happened in my lifetime. I couldn't believe that they actually shut everything down. Then the remote schooling, all of the different school shootings that have happened, unfortunately, and the riots and protests and takeovers of city by protesting rioting groups and things like that. There's just always something. And then if you just look at the investments, specifically the stock market, if you look back, it's just gone like this, like all over the place. Now, thankfully, it's gone like this and gone up, which is good. But it's hard to know, what does tomorrow hold? So knowing that, and knowing that we went into the Christmas season of 2021 thinking there's going to be massive shortages. And there have been on some things. When you're looking at cars, trying to buy a car, used car values went way up because buying new cars was hard to come by, or at least inventory of new cars was hard to come by. But with uncertain times comes a bit of fear. And there is an entire community of preppers that are dedicated to preparing for worst case scenario. And I know those have become much more common in today's society because of what happened with the pandemic. If you were stocked up on masks before it started, you were set. Masks and toilet paper. If you had toilet paper, you were set. If you didn't, I'm not sure what you did. But this community has really ramped up, and I think you can take some very important bits from that. Also take from what the Red Cross suggests. Go on their website, see what their current suggestion is. They always want you to have at least a week's worth of anything you might need. If you couldn't go to the grocery store this week, you need to have what is necessary to get you through. But I'm going to go over some things that everybody can relate to. So let's talk about what's happening right now in society that has created instability and kind of an uncertain future. So let's start with the labor shortage. Right now, we've talked about the Great Recession and how all these companies are having trouble finding labor. Well, what does that mean to you? It means that if you're going somewhere, let's say you're going out to eat, there may not be enough servers to give you your food. So you may end up waiting a long time. Now that may be like a first world problem. It's just one example. But let's say you're going to a store to buy something and you need help. Let's say they put something on the top shelf. Can you find an employee to help you get that down? If you're going to the grocery store, I've done this many times where they have like 1 or 2 checkers at the grocery store and the line is just wrapped around and down the hallway through one of the grocery shopping aisles. That's very, very common these days. But something that is even more frustrating, last winter in Texas here, we had a freeze and a power outage. It was unbelievably low temperatures, companies that had not winterized their equipment, everything kind of combined for a worst case scenario where there were several days worth of power outages. And I think my parents were out of power for 4 days. Their pipes froze. It was horrible. And in the end, when everything came back to normal, that freeze caused so many pipes to burst and it caused water to leak all over all these people's houses that everyone needed plumbers and repair people all at the same time. And there weren't enough people to go around. So what did they do? Well, in my case, I happen to already have workers doing something at my house. So I just said, hey, while you're here, can you also do this thing for my parents and help them out? And they did, and it was great. And they had the problem solved, the water leak, at least, right away. The rest of it, they couldn't really do. They had to get carpet, things like that. And they're still, 8-9 months later, trying to finish off fixing all of that. But that's the concept of a shortage due to labor, where there wasn't enough people, there weren't enough companies to deal with the demand. Now that was because there was a very, very high demand. But the same thing can happen when there's very, very low labor availability. Similarly, medical. very high demand over this whole last 2 years, but very low availability. And as these healthcare workers have been burnt out or very frustrated with the processes, they have also been part of the Great Recession, decreasing that labor pool. So from a services perspective, what can you do to help this? Well, what you can do is learn to do things yourself. Learn how to fix things yourself. Learn how to do a lot of the manual labor jobs that you might otherwise hire out because they require some skills. Learn how to get those skills. Go out, buy a book, look at YouTube videos, learn how to do some minor electrician stuff yourself, minor plumbing stuff yourself, minor repairs around the house, maybe painting, drywall, whatever. The more skills you have, the more of a handyman that you can become, the less you will rely on outside services. Another item that had some massive shortages has been computer-related things. I talked about the cars. I also noticed that I bought a computer about a year ago, and I was looking at potentially getting another one for my son for school and things that he has to do. Well, the same computer I bought has gone up in value, or up in cost, let's say. If I wanted to buy the same computer brand new, it's $500 more now. And I said, okay, well, what if I went and built a computer? Because I've done that before. And I looked for graphics cards because I love to play video games, so every computer I build has a graphics card in it. Well, the graphics cards have doubled in price since then. And I'm thinking, wow, well, I guess I just won't get a new computer now. Like, that's ridiculous price. I'm not going to go pay $3,000 for a new computer. So there are certain things that if you had prepared ahead of time and had those items, so in my case, I had already bought a computer, so I really don't need one. And my son has an old computer that's on its last legs, but it's still functioning. So it's like an 8-year-old laptop. So I can let him continue to use that until the prices come down. But if I didn't have those things, or if it was something that wasn't computer related, if it was more important, if it was toilet paper at the beginning of the pandemic, you want to have everything you need for now and have a little bit of a backup for later so that when these shortages happen, they don't affect you as much. You don't have to pay the increased prices to get these things. Another interesting example that is very, very recent is Canada recently had massive flooding. So they've unfortunately just been hit with a triple whammy recently. Back last summer, they had unusually warm weather that caused wildfires. Well, the wildfires actually practically burned down one of their towns, but it also caused a haze that was just bad for your health all through the summer and fall. It was really, really bad. And go look on YouTube for videos of what happened in Canada. Then on top of that, they have the entire pandemic shortages, all of that. Now they have a flood, or they had a series of floods across Canada that washed out lots of their roads. Well, a lot of the stuff they get from China comes in on their west coast and they have to ship it over to their east coast. Well, in the middle is all these washed out roads. So they're having to now, I think, route things through the US to get over there and go back up. But just a massive series of problems. If you look at that combined with things like what we have in the US, a lot of the time hurricanes or flooding as a result of those hurricanes, or the wildfires we have in the US, or earthquakes, or, right? There's always something. If you at least have enough for those somethings to not be as bad for you. If you were in the freeze we had last year and you had a wood-burning fireplace, if you had an alternate source of heat, an alternate source of electricity, it wasn't as bad for you. So looking a little bit ahead and trying to find ways to make the next crisis not as bad for you is always a good idea. Now, I talked about economic instability, but what does that mean for you specifically? So when the stock market crashes, do you need that money? Are you retired? Do you need that money? And if you do, look at my video on my 4% rule with a twist. It can help. If you're not retired and you don't need that money, wait for it to come back. But when the stock market crashes like that and the economy is uncertain, many times employers do layoffs. Now, I know right now we're dealing with the Great Recession and they can't find enough labor, so it's not as big of a problem right now. But that will not last forever. Eventually, everything will normalize, equalize, and we'll have enough labor to do everything we want to do. When that time comes, if the stock market does a dip and there is this economic uncertainty, you may need to find another job. So what are you going to do to prepare for that? That could be things like making sure you have skills that are marketable, going and getting a better education. If you don't have a college degree, get one. If you do have a college degree, maybe get the next level, or go and get certifications. Those are becoming much more popular these days. One thing that my wife and I both have is a PMP certification, which can help you find project management jobs or any other kind of management related job. But there are so many other certifications out there in every field. There's certifications for medical, for nursing, for IT. Microsoft has lots of certifications, but there's so many others that exist. Go look at some of those so that you can beef up your resume so that your skills are current and you can prove it. That will then help you get another job if you lose yours. Look for multiple sources of income. If you have a day job, maybe a part-time other job, or a side gig, or some kind of investment that can give you passive income. The more options you have for earning money, the less losing any one of those will hurt you. You will still be able to get by on a few of your side incomes, rather than all of them. Lastly, to prepare for this economic instability, I would say have an emergency fund. If you don't have one now, try really hard to save one up. If you had gotten any of the stimulus checks and you didn't need them, they should have gone into an emergency fund. Ideally, you want to have at least 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund. And that's not because you necessarily think you're going to be out of work for 6 months. It could be, but it could be that just you lose a job and you have a medical emergency, like multiple things come together at the same time. Then maybe that 6-month income only becomes a 3-month income. And when I say 6 month to 3 month, it is of whatever it costs you to live a normal life without income. So it's not like your bare minimum expenses. If you're going and buying things on a regular basis, you have to go to the grocery store, you have to do whatever, you cannot cut these things out. That's what I mean. That level of money to last you 3 to 6 months. Then once you have that, try to get that up to a year. I know that sounds like a lot of money, and you can take some of that and put it in a high investment like a stock market portfolio of some sort. But the more you have, the less these market fluctuations matter to you, because the longer you can go, the more down times or bad times or big events you can deal with before you run out of money. Now, one good thing that has come out of the stock market fluctuations is if you have money from a stimulus check, from the sale of a rental property like what I did, maybe just sitting in savings, you can actually get in when the stock market does this. I know people in the past said, oh, investing in stocks is easy. You just invest when they're low and sell when they're high. It's totally not that easy, because you never know when the low is and you never know when the high is. But this year, it's been pretty easy. I mean, it's come down and then it's gone right back up. So if you had invested in the down, it's gonna come back up. That's not long-term advice. That is short-term. This year has been unique for that, but it has worked out well. So when economic instability happens and you see some cycles like that happening, if you have money set aside, you can take advantage of it. I highly suggest preparing for things that you have seen happen. It's easy to go down the rabbit hole of what if, and try to prepare for everything and get overwhelmed and then give up. But if you've had hurricanes in your area, flooding, earthquakes, fires, the whole pandemic lockdown thing, anything you have actually seen happen could definitely happen again. So make sure you've at least covered your bases so that you know if any of these things that I have seen in my life happen again, I'll be okay. You don't have to take it any farther than that. That will get you through 99% of the stuff you're going to see in your lifetime, or somewhere in that vicinity. That is a random statistic that I'm throwing out that I have no data to back it up by, but you know what? That's what everybody does these days. I hate to add to that, but really, you're dealing with the unknown. You don't know how many bad things are going to happen, but at least if you have covered all the things you've seen happen, you know you're pretty well off. The last thing I'll leave you with, and I think this is probably the most important of all of these, to deal with the uncertain times we're in and the uncertain times ahead, is be alert. Pay attention to your surroundings. Watch what's going on in the news, in the media. Watch what seems to be upcoming. If you think wintertime is coming, a freeze might come, get your generator, get your heat source, all of that ahead of time. If you think there might be a shortage, stock up before everyone else is trying to stock up. And don't be a hoarder. Don't go out there and just buy up everything on the shelf, because that leaves nothing for anyone else. Buy enough for you and your family for now and a little bit into the future. And if you really feel like you want to have enough for an extended period of time, do that. Acquire those goods for an extended period of time. Don't do it all last minute. But be alert. Watch what's going on in the world. Think about what might come next based upon all the variables that are out there. If you see something happening that seems a little scary, avoid it. Go somewhere else. This could help you avoid dangerous situations. But being alert, watching your surroundings, watching what's in the news, listening to the radio, listening to the opinions of your friends and what they think is important and what they think is going on. Taking all of these variables into consideration will help you get ahead of any bad thing that's going to happen, or will help you prepare to deal with any bad thing that's going to happen in the future. I hope this video has been useful for you. If it has, please click the like button below. Leave a comment if you have some thoughts about today's topic. If you'd like to get notified when I post more videos, please click on the bell icon. That is all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.